the next speaker, Dr. Tilak Rao. I'll give a brief introduction to Dr. Tilak M. Rao. He is presently the Assistant Professor, Center for Study of Cultures, Chanakya University, Bengaluru. Dr. Rao was introduced to the Sanskrit world at the age of 10. He underwent 12 years of rigorous training in Vedic literature, covering 10 major Upanishads, and is trained in chant, the entire Krishna Yajurveda Taittiriya recension. In addition, he has studied classical Sanskrit, including Kavya, Panini Sashtadhyayi, Vedanta, Nyaya, Sankhya, and Yoga. He has authored a primer on Sanskrit grammar named Ashtadhyayi Pravesha. His current areas of research include cultural difference and translation, Indian political thought with reference to Arthashastra and Dharmashastras, among others. He has more than 7 years of teaching and research experience. He has worked as an assistant professor at MIT School of Vedic Sciences, Pune, and as deputy director at Veda Vijnana Shodha Samsthan. Currently, he is an assistant professor at Chanakya University, Bengaluru. Dr. Tilak Rao, over to you.
Okay. Dhanyawada, Mahodaya. So I will share my slide. Yeah, Dhanyawada for giving a brief introduction of mine. Nagarajji always guided me when I was in MIT School of Vedic Sciences. So under him, I was a faculty. Though I was a faculty, I studied many things from Nagarajji. So I think this is an opportunity to present based on the research that we are doing at our center. So I begin with 2 verses from the Vyakarana. Both these verses emphasize the necessity of being familiar with various traditions to gain Vidya. I think already these verses were mentioned, but once again I will mention these 2 verses. Prajna vivekam labhate vinnair agama darshanaihi kiyadva shakyamunnetum swatarkam anudhavata. So prajna vivekam labhate, the intellect acquires critical acumen by familiarity with different traditions. How much does one really understand by merely following one's own reasoning only? And the next shloka in the Vakyapadiyam is Tattadutprekshamananam Puranehi Agamehi Vina Anupasita Vruddhanam Vidya Na Ati Prasidati. So the learning of those who have not sat at the feet of the earlier scholars, Anupasita Vruddhanam, and also without Purana and Agama, Puranehi Agamehi Vina, that is missing in the translation. But flit from one idea to another does not attain complete definiteness. So these 2 shlokas suggest that being familiar with various traditions is very important to gain knowledge. So I am affiliated with the Center for Study of Cultures, and the presentation is also an outcome of our interdisciplinary research that we are doing at our center. And a comprehensive understanding of various disciplines is essential to interpret various sutras of Vyakarana, to pose significant questions with contemporary relevance, and to address numerous issues. To illustrate this, I will discuss only 2 examples. So these 2 examples also clarify, I hope that will clarify this shloka as well. The 2 examples are, one is from Ashtadhyayi. This is about one particular sutra in Ashtadhyayi, Shudranam Aniravasitanam. And it is very short sutra, consists only 2 words, Shudranam and Aniravasitanam. However, I will show how challenging it is to comprehend the meaning of this sutra without a solid grasp of multiple disciplines. And the second example is derived from our research on a word in the story of Satyakama Jabala. Through this example, I will demonstrate how familiarity with various traditions help us resolve issues and understand Shastras in the most appropriate way. So these are the 2 examples that I will discuss here. First, let us begin with the sutra, Shudranam Aniravasitanam. So this sutra is in Ashtadhyayi, and it is in the Samasa section of Ashtadhyayi. And this sutra is relates to Dvandva Samasa. So there are two types of Dvandvas. One is Itaretara Dvandva and another is called Samahara Dvandva. So I have given examples of both. So in the example, Ramakrishna Gacchataha, Rama and Krishna are going. So Ramakrishna, this compound is an example of Itaretara Dvandva. And Panipadam Prakshalaya, wash hands and legs. So in this example, Panipadam is an example of Samahara Dvandva. So what is the difference? The difference is that in the second example, Panipadam Prakshalaya, the word Panipadam is in Ekavachana. But in the first example, Ramakrishna Gacchataha, the word is in Dvivachana. So whenever there is a Samahara Dvandva Samasa, the word will be in Ekavachana. So there is the main difference between Samahara and Itaretara. In Itaretara, it can be Dvivachana, Bahuvachana, both are possible. But in Samahara, always the word will be in Ekavachana. And there are a few rules in Ashtadhyayi that explain where the Ekavachana, a singular form, is mandatory in Dvandva Samasa. And one of such sutra is Shudranam Aniravasitanam. So that is related to Samahara Dvandva Samasa. So the meaning of this sutra is a Dvandva compound of words denoting those classes of Shudras who have not been expelled is singular. It gets Ekavachana. So Aniravasitanam Shudranam. There are only two words. So there is an adjective to Shudranam. It is Aniravasitanam. Those Shudras who are not expelled. The words denoting such Shudras get in Samasa, in Samahara Dvandva Samasa, gets Ekavachana. That is the meaning of the sutra. So there are two words in this sutra. One is Shudrana and the second one is Aniravasitana. So first let us take the word Shudrana. So is it possible to determine the meaning of this word Shudra? See, determining who is Shudra and who is not cannot be decided using Vyakarana Shaastra alone. What we can say using Vyakarana? So Vyakarana can tell which pratyaya is used in this word, which dhatu is used in this word, or how the combination of dhatu and pratyaya creates this word, and what is the primary meaning that can be derived from the dhatu and pratyaya. All this we can say using Vyakarana. However, to understand whom the word refers in this word, to whom we can use this word, we must understand how society functioned during the period of Panini and to which group this word referred, and whether Varnas were social classes or something else. So without having knowledge of social and political thinking of ancient India, the referent of the word Shudra remains unclear. And additionally, due to colonial influence, the meaning of this word has become even more ambiguous. Therefore, understanding how colonial discussions shape the meaning of various Sanskrit words is also essential to make sense of this sutra. And my next example illustrates how colonial interaction changed meaning of a word, a particular word in Upanishad. Therefore, to understand a single word of this sutra, there are only two words in this sutra, Shudranam and Aniravasitanam. Just to understand the first word, Shudranam, familiarity with various modern and ancient disciplines is very essential. Without knowing various disciplines, so it includes how the society was functioned, how political thought was there in ancient India, and what happened after colonial, what is the influence of colonial interaction, what changed after colonial interaction. Without having knowledge of all these discussions, it is very difficult to decide what is the meaning of Shudra, whom we can call a Shudra. And if we set aside this controversial term Shudra, there is another word in this sutra. That is Aniravasita. So there is samasa, na niravasita, aniravasita. So niravasita means expelled or banished. Therefore, aniravasita means opposite to that. So those who are not banished, those who are not expelled are called aniravasitas. So the meaning of this sutra becomes, so the compound of words denoting unexpelled or unbanished Shudras will be in Ekavachana. Now the important question here is unexpelled from where? Aniravasita from where? But to answer to this question, it's not straightforward. If we go back to Mahabhashya tries to address this question and discusses it in the following way. I will show how the discussion goes in Mahabhashya, because there is a discussion about the meaning of this word aniravasita. And let's see what is the discussion in Mahabhashya. And there is a question. It begins with the question that I asked. Aniravasitanam ityuchyate. Kutaha aniravasitanam? So the word aniravasitam is read in the sutra. What is the place that is referred to from which they are not banished? So aniravasita, not banished, from which place? That is the question. And the answer to this question was Aryavarta aniravasitana. The place from which they are not banished is Aryavarta. Then the subsequent question will be Kaha punaha Aryavarta? What is that? Where is that Aryavarta? How to decide which one is Aryavarta? And the answer is Prag Adarshat, Prag Kakalakavanat, Dakshinena Himavantam, Uttarena Paryatram. The country to the east of Adarsha, to the west of Kalakavana, to the south of Himalayas, and to the north of Paryatra. See, if you see this discussion about Dvandva Samasa, and a particular type of Dvandva Samasa, that is Samahara Dvandva. And this sutra is about that. Where to use, where Ekavachana is mandatory, compulsory. And this sutra discusses about that. But if you go back to Mahabhashya and if you see the discussion, so now they are discussing about geography of Aryavarta. So to understand a particular word of this sutra, we should know the geography of Aryavarta, where this is Aryavarta is located. Based on that, who is Niravasita, who is Aniravasita can be decided. This is what the Bhashyakara is trying to say. This is how it began, but it moves forward, the discussion. Then the Akshepa is Yadyevam Kishkinda Gandhikam Shakayavanam Shaurya Krauncham iti na siddhyati. So if you say those are not banished from Aryavarta, they are Aniravasitas, then there will be a problem. What is the problem? There are many forms like Kishkinda Gandhika, Shakayavana, Shaurya Krauncha. So these people are banished from Aryavarta, but we can see Samahara Dvandva in these examples. So saying Aryavarta Aniravasitana is incorrect. Then the answer is Evam Tarihi Arya Nivasad Aniravasitanam. Kaha punaha Arya Nivasaha, Gramaha, Goshaha, Nagaram, Samvaha iti. If so, it refers to those not banished from the residence of Aryas, which is the place where Aryas reside: Grama, Ghosha, Nagara, Samvaha. He introduced few more words: Grama, Ghosha, Nagara, Samvaha. So again, there might be question: what is Grama? What is Ghosha? So is it the village, the revenue village that we are discussing today? Can we call revenue villages as Grama or something different? So it's a different question, and we have written an article about Grama itself. So even to understand these words, so again, multidisciplinary understanding is required. But even if you continue with this sentence, those who are not banished from the residence of Aryas, so then again there is a question of what is the residence of Aryas. Again, the Akshepa is, even if you say those who are not banished from the residence of Aryas, there will be a problem. Even then the form Chandala Mritapa is not secure. To denote the dwelling of Chandalas and Mritapas, in outhouses of big houses. So even if you take this meaning to the word aniravasita, we can't resolve the problem, because this is such examples like Chandala Mritapa cannot get ekavachana, or we cannot apply samahara dvandva in such examples. So then he goes, evam tarihi yajnakarmanaha aniravasitanam. If so, it refers to those not prevented from doing sacrifice. So it began with geography, Aryavarta, then about residents of Aryas. Now it is about sacrifice. So if you see, so my interest is not teaching Mahabhashya, but how they are bringing various disciplines to discuss the meaning of a particular word. Just I want to show that. So to decide the meaning of aniravasita, so they are bringing various disciplines and trying to explain the meaning of this word, or where this word can be used. And again, there is akshepa, evamapi takshayaskaram rajaka tantuvayam iti na siddhyati. If so, the forms like taksha, ayaskara, and rajaka tantuvaya cannot be secured. So even this cannot be the answer. So what is the answer? So the discussion goes on like this. So so I won't show all those discussions, because the goal is just to show how various disciplines are required just to understand a sutra. There are only two words, one is Sudranam and Aniravasitanam. So today it is very difficult to understand the meaning of this sutra. So we can't decide who is Sudra today because of various problems. And even it is ambiguous what is the meaning of Aniravasita, though there is some answer in Mahabhashya. So what this shows, Patanjali discusses geography of ancient India, and he incorporates his understanding of social and political thought of that time to make sense of this word. He also delves into discussion of smritis. He discusses about yajna karma, and later he brings some portions of smriti. Therefore, although the Mahabhashya, it seems as just a commentary of Ashtadhyayi, a foundational text of Sanskrit grammar, the discussion within Mahabhashya are not limited to just what we say. Generally, when if you see the grammar text, there will be discussion about morphology, syntax, etc. But Mahabhashya, the discussions of Mahabhashya are not limited to morphology, syntax, etc. Rather, they incorporate insights from diverse contemporary disciplines of that era, of their era. Without access to these varied disciplines and a comprehension of the social and political thought prevalent during that period, comprehending this particular sutra becomes exceedingly challenging. So this is one example how it is very much required to have multidisciplinary understanding to make sense of discussions in various shastras. Now I will take a completely different example. This example illustrates how familiarity with various traditions and disciplines can help us in resolving issues related to understanding a sentence. Here I showed necessity of having knowledge of various disciplines to make sense of this sutra. Now I am showing how we can resolve a particular problem with the having familiarity with various traditions and disciplines. So at first glance, this problem may seem as related to language, and we may think it can be resolved through the knowledge of Vyakarana. However, I will demonstrate how this problem cannot be resolved only at the linguistic level and can be addressed by incorporating insights from various other disciplines. And this problem is about a particular word used in the Satyakama Jabala story of Chandogya Upanishad. Before delving into the problem, let us examine how different people have explained this story of Satyakama Jabala. Let us see first This is from Wikipedia. You can open Wikipedia, the same content you will get. So in the Wikipedia, the story is given like this. Satyakama Jabala, as known as Satyakama Jabali, is a boy, and later Vedic sage who first appears, okay. As a boy, in order to become brahmachari, Satyakama inquires about his father and his family from his mother Jabala. His mother tells him that she went about many places in her youth, attending to different people, devoted to their service, and did not know his lineage. Eager for knowledge, he goes to the sage Haridrumata Gautama, requesting the sage's permission to live in his school for brahmacharya. The teacher asks, "My dear child, what family do you come from?" Satyakama replies that he is of uncertain parentage. It means he don't know who the father is, because his mother did not know who the father is. This is how the story is narrated in Wikipedia. There is another website. If we see this, how it is described in this website, here they say the Satyakama was Jabala's only child. She was glad. Just I will use this pointer. She was glad that Satyakama was willing to train for the highest knowledge. "Mother, please tell me my lineage," said Satyakama, for he knew that Gautama would be sure to ask him the name of saint from whom his family traced descent. The mother was in fix. She didn't know who Satyakama's father was. She had never been married. Satyakama was an illegitimate child. This is how this website describes story of Satyakama Jabala. So she was not married. She had illicit relationship with many people, and Satyakama was an illegitimate child of Jabala. And if we go to Tagore's poem, Fruit Gathering, he also uses this story in his poem. He says, "The early rays of the sun glistened on the treetops of the forest hermitage. The students, with their tangled hair still wet with their morning bath, sat under ancient tree before the master. There came Satyakama. He bowed low at the feet of the sage and stood silent. 'Tell me,' the great teacher asked him, 'of what clan are thou?' 'My lord,' he answered, 'I know it not.' My mother said, when I asked her, 'I had served many masters in my youth, and thou didst come to thy mother's Jabala's arms, who had no husband.' There rose a murmur like the angry hum of bees disturbed in their hive, and the students muttered at the shameless insolence of the outcast." So again, what he is trying to convey? So he was outcast, and she served many masters. She had a relationship with many. Therefore, she didn't know who the husband of her. And the Satyakama he suggests that Satyakama was an illegitimate child. So what we will know, you can browse through many such, there are YouTube videos about Satyakama Jabala, and many such websites where we can get stories of Satyakama Jabala. By reading all these, with these various sources, what we will know about Satyakama Jabala, especially about Jabala, how Jabala is portrayed in all these various sources. See, what are the ideas within which Jabala is placed? She was poor, she was humble lady, she was a domestic worker, she was serving many people, many masters in different places. She was unmarried, she was young, and she was outcast, she was dasi, and she might be prostitute. She had illicit relationship with many people, and she had an illegitimate child, and his name was Satyakama. This is the idea that we get if we read all these different sources. So within these cluster of ideas, the story of Jabala is placed. But This is how we will understand today if we read any source. But many traditional scholars had a problem with such portrayal of Jabala. I will show an example. I can show many such examples, but I will show a particular examples where it's clearly mentioned. So it is a notes by Panditaraja Sri S. Subramanya Shastri. So it is a note written to Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad, and Shankara's comment is also there. And he edited, Subramanya Shastri ji edited this text, and he adds a note, and there is a very long note in this section. He says, Satyakama katham shuddham sampradaya anusarini paschatyaschcha swakiyascha viparyasyanti mohataha tattattvam virunom yatra sputam bhashye pradarshitam. The story of Satyakama, pure and in accordance with tradition, is often distorted by both Westerners and our own people out of moha. Here, I clearly explain the essence of the story as demonstrated in the commentary. This is how he begins, and there is a detailed discussion in his note. But the important question here is, why did traditional scholars feel became uncomfortable with such portrayals of Jabala? Why do they claim that these portrayals are not in accordance with tradition and are being done out of moha? This is what in this example Panditaraja Subramanya Shastri is saying, and he's uncomfortable with the contemporary explanation of this story. So what is why he is uncomfortable? It's just one example. There are many such examples, and many traditional scholars were uncomfortable with this contemporary explanation. So then what I did, so since Subramanya Shastri ji is saying it is not in accordance with tradition, so I searched how, because this story is in Upanishad, Chandogya Upanishad. Therefore, and many commentators wrote bhashya on Chandogya Upanishad. Therefore, I searched how they explained this particular story. And here are the various bhashyas till 17th, 18th century. So the mantra which is there in Chandogya Upanishad 442, Sahayana Muvacha Nahametad Vedatata Yadgotrastamasi Bahvaham Charanti Paricharini Yavane Tvam Alabhe Sahametanna Veda Yadgotrastamasi Jabalatu Nama Ahamasmi Satyakamo Nama Tamasi Sasatyakama Eva Jabalo Pruvithaha iti. So if we see Shankara Bhashya, Madhvacharya's commentary is not there, then in his tradition Raghavendra Tirtha wrote commentary, and Rangaramanuja Bhashya is there. And if we the first translation of Chandogya Upanishad was done by Rajendra Mitra, and his translation is also available, and he translated Shankara's commentary itself. So if we read this translation of Rajendra Mitra, then we will know how the translators understood this story. So during my youth, when I got thee, I was engaged in attending on many, and it is added, guests who frequented the houses of my husband and had no opportunity of making any inquiry on the subject. I know not of what Gotra you are. Jabala is my name, and Satyakama thine. So what is going on here? So all the traditional scholars for 1,000 years, from Shankara to Rangaramanuja, so everyone says she was in her husband's house, and she was serving many atithis there, and she didn't get time to know Gotra of his husband. Therefore, she said, and later he died. Therefore, again, she didn't get any chance to know the Gotra. Therefore, she said, I don't know Gotra, and tell that. So just say my name and say, I don't know the Gotra. That is how these Bhashyakaras understood this mantra. And so the question is, why Bhashyakaras understood this mantra in this particular way? So why they didn't follow the path of modern scholars So all this, for 1,000 years, all these scholars understood this mantra in a particular way. So why they understood this mantra in a particular way? That was the question. So how can we answer? So we have to go back to different sources like Ramayana, Mahabharata. How the particular word has problem in this mantra, this paricharani. So how the word paricharani or paricharya is understood in various other texts like Purana, Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. I will just take two examples so that I will clear my point. So one example is of Kunti. See, Kunti did paricharya of Durvasa. And she was very young. She did paricharya of Durvasa, and he became very happy, and he gave vara. And Durvasa vara was very respectable person, and Kunti was also a wealthy girl because she was a daughter of Kunti Bhoja. And because of this vara, she got all those Pancha Pandavas. This is the one example of paricharya, how paricharya is discussed in this. So the Kunti was doing paricharya here. And second example where the word paricharani is used is in Ramayana. So Shabari was called paricharani. Muninam ashramo yesham ahamcha paricharini tesham gatana madhyapi drishyate paricharini shramani Shabari nama kakustha chirajiviri. So Shabari was called Paricharani because she was doing paricharya of many rishis in ashrama, and she did paricharya of Rama also. And again, she was waiting to see Rama for many years. So what we see in all this, we can get many such references, how the word paricharya and paricharani is discussed in various other places. So if we see how the discussion or within which ideas the concept is discussed. So one is Pujyata. So Shabari had, she respected Rama and other rishis. She was doing paricharya of all those great people. And whether serving is correct or not, but just for understanding purpose, I'm using the word serving. So they were serving some people, some great people, both Kunti and Shabari. And in the example Shabari, she was very old, but in the example of Kunti, she was very young. Both old and young, both can do paricharya. So there was no age limit to do paricharya. And what is paricharya? So offering some water, arghya, padya, etc., offering all this is considered as paricharya, whatever is required to do their daily karma, achara. So helping in that is considered as paricharya. And importantly, so it is not about maithuna, sexual intercourse, because when we saw the contemporary discussion, how the story is discussed in contemporary sources, everyone brings sexual intercourse. So she had illegitimate child. This is how we saw the discussion. But when we see the discussion about paricharani, paricharya in various other ancient texts, so nowhere you will find discussion about maithuna. And there is a sense of pride. Both Shabari and Kunti were very happy to do paricharya of Rama and also Durvasa. So the concept paricharya or paricharani is understood within completely different cluster of ideas. And so what is going on here? See, there are two sets of ideas now. So one set of idea, that is how it is discussed in Ramayana, Mahabharata, also in commentary tradition, and commentary tradition followed that because that was the resource available to them. Ramayana, Mahabharata, etc. They used that resource to understand the meaning of the word paricharani, and they explained the mantra. So the set of ideas that were available to commentators and others was these Pujyata, and it is not about sexual intercourse, it is not about illegitimate child, and all these ideas were there to understand what is paricharya, paricharani. But when we see the contemporary scholarship, how it discusses about Jabala, it showed various sources. So the cluster of idea is completely different. So she is a domestic worker. She is very poor and humble, and she was outcast. She was unmarried. She had illegitimate child. She was serving many masters. So completely different set of ideas are brought here to explain the story of Jabala, and which is completely absent till 18th century. It was not there in Ramayana and Mahabharata, and it was not there even in the thousands of years commentary tradition. So then the question is, so what is the source of this new cluster of ideas? From where all this the modern scholarship got this new cluster of idea? What is the source of this new ideas? So then I went back to translation, because we saw the first translation of Rajendra Mitra, and he translated Shankara's Bhashya itself, so we didn't find any problem. So then I searched other translations, and see, I listed all the translations, all prominent translations. Even some translations I left, but all important translations are here. 1879, Max Muller translates this Upanishad. How he translates: in my youth, when I had to move about much as a servant, waiting on my guests in my father's house, I conceived thee. We can see the shift here. So he's translating Paricharaniya servant, and he added a sentence in the bracket, waiting on guests in my father's house. The question is, from where he's drawing these ideas? Because it is not in their commentary tradition, it was not there in Ramayana and Mahabharata. So what is the source from where he is drawing these ideas? So to answer this question, we should go back to the culture of the translator. So Max Muller translated it. So from his culture, he is drawing some ideas. There are some commonplace ideas in his culture. So that helped him to translate this mantra in a particular way. So then what was that commonplace idea which was available to Europeans to translate these mantras or to understand this paricharya in a particular way? So if we go back to the literature, and if we see how the maid servants were lived in 18th, 19th century in Europe, so we will see many of the ideas which are brought in to discuss Jabala are about, actually it's about maid servants. See, there are many resources where you can see how they were treated in Europe. Maid servants were treated. Mainly maid servants were young girls, and they were sexually exploited by the masters. Many times they were sexually exploited, and they belong to lowest rung of the society, and they were giving birth to illegitimate babies, and they were punished by the law for that. And so if we see the discussions about maid servants in the 18th and 19th century Europe, so what we will know, so these are the cluster of ideas within which maid servants are discussed. So they were very poor, they were very humble, they were domestic workers, they were serving many people in many places, they were generally unmarried, and they were young, and they were sexually exploited, and they were giving there was a probability of giving birth to child. And the cluster of ideas which are related to maid servant are brought to understand paricharya and to discuss about the story of Jabala. So what this Max Muller did, or what Europeans did, they were familiar with maid servants, and they were the readers of these translations were Europeans, and their goal was to make those Europeans to understand these texts. So they use the commonplace ideas which were available to Europeans to translate these texts. Therefore, now we can understand why he adds this sentence, waiting on the guests in my father's house. Maid servants sometimes were staying in their father's house, sometimes they were staying in their master's house. So the ideas about maid servant is helping him to translate the Upanishad, the story of Satyakama Jabala, in a particular way. Therefore, he translates Paricharaniya servant. Later on, everyone follows that. And in the 1879, there is another translation. There he clearly uses the word maid servant. But S.C. Basu, being an Indian, he had some problem with such translation. Therefore, though he used the word maid servant, he added a note. Satyakama appears to be the foster child of Jabala. She had picked him up in her youth and did not. So he is trying to, he sees the problem in bringing this particular cluster of ideas, especially sexually exploited, prostitution, illegitimate child. So he sees there is some problem in bringing these ideas to explain the story of Satyakama Jabala. Therefore, he adds a note and he tries to remove that cluster of ideas. But later on, everyone followed the same path, and everyone generally added the particular word servant, maid servant, etc. And if you see, after 100 years, where it ended, in 1998, from Oxford University Press, Patrick Oliver's translation came, and he says, she replied, son, I don't know what your lineage is. I was young when I had you. I was a maid then and had a lot of relationships. So this is where it ended after 100 years. So what happened here? So there are two clusters of ideas. See, so one cluster of idea which was available to commentary tradition. So till 18th century, these ideas were available, and they used those ideas to explain the meaning or explain what is Paricharani, who is Paricharani, and what is Paricharya. So within this cluster of ideas, Pujyata and sense of pride, it is not about sexual intercourse. Within these cluster of ideas, they understood Paricharya. But what happened after translation? The translators, what they did, they saw some similarities. Some of the ideas are overlapping. Both Paricharanis and maid servants were serving someone. And here also, both young and old were could be Paricharanis. And generally, maid servants were young female. So some ideas are overlapping. Therefore, what the translators did, they used a completely different word, maid servant, which has completely different cluster of ideas to make sense. So such word they inserted to understand who is Paricharani. And what happened after 100 years? Now we lost the cluster of ideas which are required to understand who is Paricharani. So we completely lost that. And we can, today, after 100 years, we are using completely new set of ideas to discuss who is Paricharani. And if we use this set of ideas, we can't understand Ramayana and Mahabharata. It will be very difficult. But we moved away from all these. So what happened? So this is how they translated. So instead of Paricharani, the word was Paricharani, and there was different cluster of ideas that was required to understand who is Paricharani. And the translators used the word maid servant, which uses completely a different set of ideas which is required to make sense of this word. And if we go to dictionary, online dictionaries today, so we don't have any option. We will get only one word. Paricharani is maid. So all options are closed. So there is only one way to make sense of this word Paricharani. All roads are closed today. So what happened here? So there is a set of idea to understand who is Paricharani. And what happened by these translations, the concept Paricharani migrated from its cluster of ideas to a completely different set of ideas. So it's a migration of concept from one cluster of concepts to another cluster of concept. So Paricharani migrated from a particular concept cluster to a completely different concept cluster. And today we are understanding Paricharani with a completely different cluster of ideas. So I will end here. Sorry, this time. So if we go back to the question that we asked in the beginning, why did traditional scholars feel uncomfortable with the contemporary portrayals of Jabala? Many scholars showed there is some problem with the new way of understanding this story. And as I showed, why do they claim that these portrayals are not in accordance with tradition and are being done out of moha? So today we can understand what is the problem. So the problem is caused because of migration of a concept from its cluster of idea to completely different cluster of idea. And what are the problems? Because of that, indeterminacy of object today. So we can't determine what is the meaning of Paricharani. So after 100 years, now it's completely unknown. So we can't say who is Paricharani today. So Or we mix all the cluster of ideas. We say she was also prostitute, she was also like Kunti. So we mix up everything. So this problem is called indeterminacy of object. So we can't determine what is the object of this word. If we say cat, then we can determine what is cat. But if we say paricharani, we can't determine what is the object of this word. And distortion of concept, that is very clear, that I showed how today we are explaining this story, how it is said in Wikipedia and other places. And it rejects the experience of the tradition. So this is the cause of the feel of uncomfortability of traditional scholars. So it rejects the experience of tradition. For thousands of years, scholars understood this mantra in a particular way. Till 19th century, this mantra was understood in a particular way. And after the 19th century, this mantra is understood in a completely different way. So what is happening here? It rejects the experience of tradition. And so finally, it is reproducing European experience. How Europeans understood this Upanishad, we are reproducing the same. So this is the cause of uncomfortability of traditional scholars that we can infer. So through this, what I want to show is, so there is a problem. How to understand this particular word, paricharini? What is the meaning of this word, paricharini? And to resolve this problem, so we could resolve this problem by engaging with discussions from various disciplines. So it is about cultural study, cultural difference, how to understand Ramayana, Mahabharata. So we engage with various disciplines to resolve this problem. So this helped us in better understanding of the concept, that is paricharani, and also understand the Shastra clearly, and also gain vidya, that is what it said in Vyakarana, to get knowledge about our own culture. So though this is about understanding a word, particular word in Upanishad, it may also seem this is a problem of translation, but actually it's not a problem of translation. It is about culture and cultural difference. So, and this problem cannot be resolved only with Vyakarana Shaastra, but we can resolve such problems with understanding of various disciplines, including Itihasa and Purana. So this is what in Vakyapadiya, Bhartahari says, Tattad utprekshamananam Puranehi agamehi vina. So we need Puranas, Agamas, traditions. So using all those, we have to understand these Shastras. So without all those, and without without being at the feet of Vriddha, who is knowledgeable, Anupasita Vriddhana, Vidya na ati prasidati. So we can't get clear knowledge about our own Shastras. Here I will end. Thanks, Nagaraj, for giving this opportunity. Dhanyawada.
Wonderful, wonderful, Tilak Rao-ji. I have long association with Dr. Tilak Rao. I know him as a person who always spoke only in Sanskrit. His English speech, we rarely get an opportunity to see, but what an amazing skill in English communication also. And what an amazing coverage of so many of the contemporary disciplines. He himself is an example of that ambidexterity from Sanskrit to modern scholarship. And actually, though he took up the topic of Vyakarana, how multidisciplinary understanding is required in resolving issues within Vyakarana, this also served as an example of his own almost sample of how a polymath can look like. His talk itself is a polymath talk. Wonderful. Thank you so much. I'll check if there are any questions. Devananda Rangappa, the concept of Shudra seems to be deeply complicated to suit the value system of hegemonic Varnashrama. In any age, the idea of Paricharani seems to differentiate, deepen the gender binary and favor the patriarchy, despite the fact that meanings are unstable. Arnab Bhattacharya, fantastic talk. Blessed to hear this. Rajiv excellent presentation. One question regarding Shudra concept, how it was resolved. Can you please again explain in brief, short?
So it is
there
not
is-
resolved. We are working on that. So therefore, maybe a different presentation itself is required. So, but
Shivakumar
yeah.
GV, is etymology of Sanskrit words sufficient to problematize modern meanings? If we start with etymology, would it lead to cluster of words and force the necessity of understanding from multiple knowledge traditions?
Yeah. So not always. In many places, it is sufficient. We can use etymology to problematize the modern meaning. But some places it we find difficult. There we have to use various other shastras also. Yeah.
Devanand Rangappa's question, the concept of Shudra seems to be deeply complicated to suit the value system of hegemonic Varnashrama. He is already calling Varnashrama as hegemonic system. And in any age, the idea of Paricharini seems to differentiate, deepen the gender binary and favor the patriarchy despite the fact that meanings are unstable. So he is already bringing the word patriarchy. So both the words hegemonic and patriarchy are taking a particular ideological position. And this is a comment, this is not a question. So there is nothing to respond to an already taken ideological position and a comment. So it's not a question, so there is no need to answer because that's not a question. Thank you very much, Dr. Tilak Rao. Wonderful, wonderful, amazing. Thank you so much.